Have the Baylor Bears faced the worst of it yet? Or are we just in the eye of this schedule? Let's talk about it on Locked on Baylor.
You are Locked on Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked on Baylor, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today, we are brought to you by FanDuel and by me, your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Looking ahead to today's episode, looking at the schedule a little bit, because we can do that in the bye week. Have the Bears already faced the worst of what they will face and the best that the Big 12 has to offer? We'll go through that. Plus, what does this season do for the recruiting class? We've all kind of hinted at it. We've all had our own theories. Let's get down to brass tacks. What will this actually do to this recruiting class? And no matter what it does, the Bears actually added a commit yesterday from the class of 2025. We'll go over his tale of the tape and so much more on this episode of Locked on Baylor. So through 3 Big 12 games, let's call it 4 for argument's sake, they faced 4 Big 12 teams, and in those games, they're 4-0. Oh, sorry, the other perfect record. They're 0-4 and 2-4 on the season. One of those wins coming against FCS, one of them coming against Group of 4, Group of 5, whatever it is. They're 0-4 in the Big 12 this year. And I kind of had this thought after the game against Iowa State, and it wasn't fully thought out, but it kind of was. Has Baylor played the best teams in the Big 12 in their first 4 games? Utah has stumbled a bit because they've lost a conference game. I still think they are a team that can absolutely go and win the conference. Maybe they're not my odds-on favorite like they were at the beginning of the season, but I think they're as well-rounded a team as anybody, and they're still pretty dangerous even with Isaac Wilson, which I know sounds weird after that loss, but I think they're that well coached. They're coming off a bye week. They're playing at home. They're going to get some momentum here in the next 2 or 3 games. So I still consider them one of the top teams in this league. And then you look at BYU at 5-0 overall, and obviously therefore undefeated in the conference. Iowa State undefeated. Colorado 2-0 in the Big 12. All right, they're flying high too, coming off a bye week and playing Kansas State this week. I think that's at home. I actually don't know that. I shouldn't say that. But therefore, you look at those 4 teams, and all of them are in the top 5 in the Big 12. Utah's tied with a bunch of other teams, but you've faced just about the best the conference has to offer. Maybe this is all behind you. Well, coming out of the bye week, you do play the team that is tied for first in the Big 12. That's also coming off a bye week. Actually, I stand corrected. Coming off the bye week, you face the team that is alone in first place in the Big 12 conference, and they are coming off a bye week too, because all you have to do is just go out to Lubbock and beat Tech. Easy. We've done it once the last 30 years. Okay. All right. Yeah. 10 of those years they didn't play it on campuses, but it was kind of a weird fluky win that Baylor had last time they were out at Tech. I don't want to say fluky. That's not fair. All right. Don't judge me to that. Fluky is not the right word. I think at the end of the season, when you look back at it, it was kind of fluky. They won 42-17. They had 3 picks. I think 1 or 2 pick sixes. It was like the worst game Bear Morton's ever played in his life playing football. And it was just a weird game and 2 6-6 teams, I believe. And I don't expect a warm welcome for the Bears at Tech in a couple of weeks. We'll get more on that game next week, but one of the big victories so far in Baylor in that game is the fact that that is a 3:00 kickoff and not a night game. So I think that does favor Baylor in some respects. But when you look at the 4 teams they've lost to, 2 of them are in the top 20, maybe even top 15 now. I didn't check it after BYU's bye week. And the other two, Utah will get back in the rankings here pretty soon. And I believe Colorado should be in the rankings. I don't think they're as good as those other teams I listed. And I know all their fans get so offended when you say they're good. They're the only fan base in the country that gets offended when you say they're good and not great. But they've been pretty solid so far, man. They're good, better than Baylor. And I think they should be ranked after what they've done. But now UCF looks bad. This conference is a total mess. It is a total mess, as we thought it would be. And so has Baylor faced the best stretch that they will face in this conference this year? Probably. And it will definitely be done after the Tech game. But at that point, let's play it out. Tech's going to be the favorites. They're at home. It's not too dissimilar from what you just had in the Iowa State matchup. So you're probably going to lose that too. And then you're looking at being 2-5 and needing to go 4-1 to close it out. When was the last time Baylor won 4 out of 5? It's been years. Actually, it's been since the Sugar Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, since that season anyway, in the middle of that season. So it's going to take a lot. But yeah, you could take some solace in the fact that they have faced, I think, what could shake out to be the top 3 teams in the league at the end of the year in Utah, BYU, and Iowa State in some order. And it's become such a painful thing watching this team sometimes that you do forget that Iowa State was that good a team. So look at it as some optimism, glass half full, that you have played such good teams so far, and that there is still a roadmap to get to 6 wins. Do I believe it? Am I like gung-ho about that roadmap and think there's no way this could fail? I wish. And the way they're playing right now, even against some of the best teams in the conference, I think it's a tall order to say that they're going to go 4-2 the rest of the way and play postseason football. But we are going to talk about the downside of that schedule, the upside for Baylor fans, probably on tomorrow's show, and look at what that roadmap is, because Dave Aranda actually talked about it a little bit in his postgame, what that roadmap could be, and if we actually believe that Baylor can do that. And we'll also take a look at what they need to be working on in this bye week. But before that, we're going to talk about the effect this has on recruits. We've heard about it this season. I asked about it to a recruit before this season on this very show. And maybe it's something that we need to remember, but the way it's trending, it doesn't feel like it's trending in the right direction. So is this kind of doomsday for the 2025 class if this continues? That's coming up next after this word from FanDuel. Hey there, you NFL fan. You have a chance to get a big return to start the season on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let me say that again. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Once again, FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we are not having a great time in the present. Okay, I think that's fair to say. We're not having a great time in the present right now with Baylor football and all that's going on with that. I get hockey started up, and lo and behold, the Bruins become the worst team in the league. That's my personal issues. You guys don't care about that. What we do care about is Baylor football, and the present's not going too great. So how about the future? How about the future, Cam? You told me all summer how great the future looks because of this recruiting class they were putting together for the class of 2025. Whew. That kid, he might not be handsome, but he is smart. That Cam kid, because he was right. That is a bright future. And for those of us who had no expectations for this season and we're still really teetering on the edge of what you thought about this head coach, Dave Aranda, that got us through the summer. I'm glad to be a part of that. And I think I made it pretty clear throughout those episodes, and probably is kind of trying to keep myself safe that, hey, if this thing goes south this year, you might have to kiss this class goodbye. And you might have to kiss this head coaching tenure goodbye. And it could mess with this good-looking future that the Baylor football program has. And this class is still really good. It's third in the Big 12, and no one is decommitted yet. Okay, this is getting out ahead of it. This is a preemptive strike. But I've heard from fans, we've heard from recruits and their parents, but from fans specifically in the last few days of, man, what is this season going to do to our recruiting class? And more importantly, what I'm hearing is, yeah, but you can't fire the coach because then what will happen to this 2025 recruiting class? And I found that very interesting. It's just an interesting way to think about things because weirdly, recruiting and recruiting analysis is a divisive thing amongst college football fans, specifically a fan base like Baylor that is not going to go and get the 5 stars all the time and have top 10 recruiting classes in the country. I would say it's a pretty even split. Like a lot of people don't care about recruiting because it's like whatever that doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything until they're on the field playing for me, wearing Baylor and performing. And I get that. And then there's still some of you, but I put myself in this camp, as we do follow it. We do find it important, and that can make or break, well, not make or break, but that could seriously help or hurt a coach's job and a coach's reputation. And you, the fan, might not believe that, but I guarantee you athletic directors believe in that. Because one of the things, according to that story that was written by Sam Kahn Jr. in the offseason about what Dave Aranda laid out to Mac Rhodes in order to save his job, one of those things was the recruiting class. Part of it was the young guys that they had playing bigger roles than they probably should have last year, and keeping those guys in the system and bringing them back. That was part of it. But another part of it is we've got to change, and we are going to change on the recruiting trail. And one of the first moves that Dave Aranda made in the offseason when he was cleaning house and bringing in more coaches yet again was to get Keenan Hall from SMU. And that turned out to be a fantastic move. As we saw, I mean, he's incredible on the recruiting trail. And that was a put up or shut up moment for Dave Aranda and for this program. And he put up big time. But we knew that was contingent on putting a winning product out there on the field in 2024. And so far, that has not happened. And is going to need a big kick in the butt for it to happen this year. And again, I don't want to sound alarmist in all this. No one is decommitted yet. But I think it's a fair question to ask before you ask about the coach getting fired. Instead, ask, what if this season keeps going the way it's going and they don't make a bowl game? And that's 3 straight losing seasons. And throughout this whole senior season for these guys, they're getting told how great they are, and other programs who were recruiting them to begin with don't just stop recruiting them. They don't stop. And how many, recruiters are going to get in their ears and say, "You sure you want to go play for that? 5-7, 3-9 last year, 6-7 the year before." They don't know what direction they're going in. At least it's not a good one. They will absolutely be hearing that from recruiters this season. And also, I mean, if you're a 4-star 17-year-old and you're getting recruited by some great programs, of course you got to be thinking about that. Is this going to get better when I'm here? Am I going to be a part of this turnaround? Some kids think like that. Some don't. And that's okay. They're making the biggest decision of their life to this point. So it's a mess. But yeah, you bring in these recruits, you come in these official visits, and you're laying an egg like you did against BYU at home, or like you've done at home the last 2 or 3 years. It's a tough one to swallow. And then comes the other part of this of you can't fire the coach because he's got this good recruiting class signed. There's a harsh reality in college football, no matter whose fault you think it is. Those kids are not yours until they get on campus. Trust me, we've seen that in the last few years. We have seen some big time examples around Baylor, right? Those are not Baylor football players until they are on campus attending Baylor. It's just the way it goes. It's nobody's fault. It's the way this thing goes. And so if you decide that you need to keep a head coach solely because of that, because you like the recruiting class that's coming in, there's no guarantees there. That's the first part of this. There's no guarantees that you keep these guys and they end up playing for Baylor anyway. But the second part of it is, let's say that is your line of thinking, that I don't love what Dave Aranda's done on the field the last few years. This season is not going the way we want it to, but you got to hold on to him because you've got a superb 2025 recruiting class. Well, then that becomes, do you want to keep the guy who has struggled to develop the recruits that he's brought in because his only winning season was with another guy's players? Do you want to keep that guy who has shown that it's been a real struggle for him and his staff to develop players at the college level just for the sake of keeping a good recruiting class of kids he will need to develop at the college level? And that's why I just find it such a weird argument. Not an argument of, hey, I want to keep Dave Aranda because I want to see how this season plays out. I understand that argument. I can hear that out. But the argument that, hey, we've got too good a recruiting class to fire the coach is one that is totally lost on me. Totally lost on me. I don't understand with what you've seen on the field the last 3 years that you're like, it has been a failure here, but I trust that he and his staff will be able to develop these guys in the future. And for that reason, I'm going to keep the coach on board. That I just find it tough to follow. But, you know, we see the post from Taz Williams' dad, who put out there that, hey, when there's no support at these games, you're going to lose these recruits. And I mean, I can understand that. I think we can all understand that, right? You know, that's a big part of your decision. What's that game day atmosphere going to be like? What are my memories going to be like of playing on Saturdays in college football? Is it going to be in front of a half-empty stadium? So if he's saying something like that about the crowd, something that feels inconsequential most of the time, then how are these recruits going to feel about the record, about what's happening in front of the crowd? That's what I'm so intrigued by. And before closing out this part of the show, it's important to remember that there have been several guys who've committed to this class who said, we want to be part of the turnaround. Taz Williams, by the way, was one of those guys. That this thing's going to turn around, and I and my pals are going to be a part of it. And we talked with Rhett Armstrong before the season here on the show, the number one kicker in the nation from Colorado, who is getting some other offers. And I asked him about that. I was like, look, Rhett, there's an opportunity that this season does not go very swimmingly. And Baylor has all this recruiting momentum with a coach on the hot seat. How are you seeing, through what lens are you seeing this season? And he more or less said, it doesn't really matter the wins or losses on the field this year. I and people who've committed that I've talked to have said that we're believing in this coach's message, and we believe in Baylor and the school and turning this thing around. So I get that that's not everyone in the class, and it might not even be the majority of the class, but there is that sentiment within this 2025 class somewhere. But if your only reasoning for keeping the head coach is he's had one good recruiting class in this year 5, then to me that is not good enough. If you want to give out some other reasons, I'll absolutely hear them out. I just don't think that one is a good enough reason if that's the reason why you are keeping this head coach. But speaking of that recruiting class, the Bears, after all of this in this weird chaos, have actually added to the 2025 recruiting class. So it could just take everything that I said and flush it right down the toilet. We will tell you who that new commit is coming up after this message from Gametime. Gametime is the only place I go to buy tickets. I say it all the time, and it is very true. In fact, I was browsing it today looking for some Baylor, Arkansas tickets on November 9th, the next Baylor football bye week. And I love it for a couple of reasons. First off, you can toggle the all-in pricing tool. And so when you see that, you're seeing the price, not all the hidden fees that you would see with all these other ticketing websites. And before I even hit that price, hit that purchase button, I can see the view from my seats. Know if there's an obstructed view, like when I go to Fenway, or if I'm going to a hockey game, I can know which team is shooting twice at which end. I know at game time with this Baylor Arkansas game, I know which side is the Baylor side, and I get to see the view from my seats because of that. Plus, it's backed with the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, so the recruiting bad all of a sudden, right? Cam, no one's decommitted, but you've put in this contingency plan that if this season goes south or if the coach gets fired, what that means to the recruiting class. And obviously things are not going well right now with Baylor football. 2-4. Thankful that they're not going to lose this week because it's a bye week. And there are plenty of the fan base that is calling for the head coach to be fired. And yet through all of that, they added a recruit. They added a recruit yesterday from Austin Westlake, one of the most storied programs in Texas high school football. Has to be the only high school in the country with 2 different Super Bowl MVPs on their alumni list. Brody Wilhelm from Westlake, the tight end, committed to the Bears today. He's a 3-star yesterday. He's a 3-star tight end, 6'5", 215, chose Baylor over Navy, Old Dominion, and Texas State. So 3-star tight end, plays for a really good, obviously really good high school football program here in Texas. Big year as a junior, 39 catches, 663 yards, 7 touchdowns, 17 yards per catch. I love a big play tight end. There are a few things in the world I love more than that. And watching his highlights, that's what he is. He's a big body. They'll line him up on the outside. He's a terrific blocker at the 6A Texas high school level. So take that for what it's worth. I always like to mention like where they're playing. It's obviously never going to be the same as college, but we're talking Austin Westlake here. We're talking some of the best high school football in the entire country that they are playing. But big target again at 6'5", 6'6", depending on where you're seeing him listed. But a 3-star guy who can bring some athleticism to the tight end position. Obviously, I believe that job will be Matthew Kloffenstein's after Michael Trigg runs out of eligibility. I believe this year. I got to double check that. I just started saying that. I don't know if that's true. But Kloffenstein was a guy who came in as a freshman last year in that class of 23, and I think can be a big time playmaker, a Ben Sims type for this Baylor team going forward. The Bears remain number 3 in the Big 12 in the 2025 recruiting class, which I find interesting. I mean, obviously they've been there the whole time or since the end of July. But what's interesting to me is you look at the 2025 recruiting classes. Number 1, TCU. Number 2, UCF. Number 3, Baylor. And if you ask those fan bases right now, all 3 of them are pretty universally on the we need to fire our coach train. Okay. 4th, Arizona State. 5th, West Virginia, who if they have another bad loss somewhere mixed in the season, they're on a good roll right now. But if they have a bad loss mixed in there, their fan base is going to be saying fire the coach. So obviously there's so much more to it than just recruiting. And those really are the teams. Those are the teams in the Big 12 that are calling to fire their coaches. Those 4 that I just listed for the top 5. I'm sorry, I lost it a little bit there because I look at 14, 15, 16 in the conference in the class 2025 recruiting rankings. Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, the three teams at the top right under Tech in this conference this year. Tech's middle of the pack, by the way, they're ninth. And then you look at three teams somewhere near the bottom are the top three in the recruiting rankings. It's good for momentum. It's good for looking at the future. And obviously, this isn't on any one of those players, but like, it doesn't mean anything for the state of your program right now. As we have learned, we posed the question a little bit in the summer. Ooh, can that off the field momentum actually help this 2024 team? Answer so far for Baylor is no, and doesn't for UCF or for TCU either. And at the flip end of the spectrum, three of the best teams in the conference right now, three of the four best teams in the conference are the bottom three, the 2025 recruiting rankings. This conference is weird, man. It's weird. I love it. Never change, Big 12, okay? I love all that you do. In fact, I think it's worth pointing out that it's been a big ACC, Big 12 thing with the Brad Brownell and now Power 4, and whether one is Power 3 and the other isn't. Look, there was a guy at the beginning of the season, game number 2, if I'm not mistaken, emphasis on number 2, who said if his Florida State Seminoles lost to the Boston College Eagles, he would eat dog excrement out of a Solo cup. And he did not do it. He vanished from Twitter when it happened. And yet here in the Big 12, we had a guy, St. Bill Snyder from Kansas State, the Kansas State burner fame, who said, if Kansas State loses to BYU, I will take a cheesy beefy 5-layer burrito from Taco Bell, and I will shove it where the sun don't shine. And that crazy did it. He did it. So in the Big 12, we put our money where our mouth is, okay, or where some other part of our body is. The ACC does not. I don't know why I'm ending on this tirade, but get out of here, ACC. We are Big 12 people, and we love it. Anyway, get involved in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this 2025 class and what will happen to them if Baylor keeps losing and or they fire the coach. What's that going to do to the class, and what does that mean to you, the fan? And have they gone through the toughest part of their schedule? Get involved in the comment section below. Since this is all going to be Baylor fans watching anyway, tell me what you're grateful for today. Okay, my girlfriend asked me, and I struggled to find something I was grateful for today. It wasn't a good day, but that's still not a good reason. I have plenty to be grateful for. So tell me what you're grateful for down in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're so close to 3,000. Let's get there, Bears fans. Let's get there. And be sure to ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. That's serious, by the way. I'm super grateful for you guys and thankful for you guys. We'll see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.